Hi.
Hi, guys.
So today we have a guest that we have been hoping to talk to for a while. His name is Nick Tirado, aka Kid with the Camera. On Instagram, we'll link everything about him so you guys can go check him out. He is an artist, a creator, he's a videographer. He
is a future Oscar winner.
Exactly. And he does a lot for the social media of the Anti-Recidivism Coalition, which is a nonprofit that does absolutely incredible work relating to recidivism and trying to lower recidivism and make sure that people who have been formerly incarcerated and are now back in society can get jobs, they can get housing, they can get support in many different ways. So they do incredible work, and he does incredible work with their social media. So we've been seeing what he's been doing, and we've been inspired by him. Nick is formerly incarcerated himself, and he has a big story to share. He has worked through some really, really painful life experiences, and I know that he's still working through them, as are we all, when we go through some serious trauma. And he was so generous to be really open and honest with us today about the things that he's been through, about his perspectives throughout life and how they've shifted, and his evolution as a person from a very fearful person to someone with a whole lot of belief in himself. We have a lot of belief in him, and I'm just excited for people to get to meet him.
Yeah, so grateful, Nick. Thank you for joining us. It was such a blessing. Thank you.
Such a blessing. Let's freaking go. Nick Tirado. Nick Tirado,
Yes.
otherwise known as Kid with the Camera.
Kid with the Cam.
On Instagram. We're going to tag you 100,000 times so everyone can go look at your
Nice.
stuff. I'm so excited
Yeah, me
because
too.
I've gotten to see like a little bit of your journey, especially you working with ARC and like seeing your creativity come to life and stuff. So I love watching your growth
Thank you.
And we have wifey in the house.
Yeah, we got my heart. We got my heart in the house.
we got wifey in the house. I love it.
Yes, I got my love in the house.
Love it. Okay. We're going to have to dive deep with you because I just know that you have a big heart and a big story to tell. So I'm so excited. And besides your creative genius, I really don't know that much about your story. So I'm so excited to learn about you. And I'm going to take you way, way back. I do want to understand, how was your experience growing up? How did your childhood start to shape your perspective on the world?
I was born in New York. I was born in New York in the Lower East Side. And my mom was not like in my life. She was in and out my life. She was on drugs. And so I lived with my grandmother for my whole life, my whole like childhood.
So did we.
Yeah, like my grandmother, I love my grandma. That's my real mom, you know. Shout out my mom, but you know, I love her. But like my grandmother raised me, you know. And so I'm living with my mom, living with my grandmother, with my brother, with my uncle, my two tias. So it was packed in a little New York apartment. And yeah, like I was really, really sad and angry as a kid because I figured like, if I'm living with my grandma and my mom don't want me, my dad don't want me, then like, you know, something's wrong with me. And, you know, as that kid growing up, I took everything out on like the people who loved me, you know, people who wanted to show me love, people who cared about me. And I just didn't know how to receive love because I felt like I was unlovable because I was a kid. And yeah, I was just really hurt and sad as a kid and mad. And growing up, yeah, my dad was in and out my life. He was trying to be in my life, but he didn't know how to be a dad, you know. He never had a dad. And then my grandmother too, like didn't really like him. So it was just a lot of turmoil. So I grew up with no parents. And then one day, like my mom decided to like get her stuff together, you know, like, cause my little brother was born and his dad, they had a relationship, my mom and my little brother's dad. And they had a toxic relationship and they would go back and forth and he would use drugs and abuse her, never physically, but like mentally, emotionally, and, you know, come and leave. And then finally she said, I'm done with this. She left to California. So when she came to California, I was a big mama's boy, you know, and I really, really wanted to be with my mom. I always wanted to live with her, always wanted to be with her. And yeah,
How
like
old were you?
at that time when she left, I was like around 12, 13.
Okay.
My grandma was like, look, we're going to go visit California. We're going to go visit your mom. And I told her, like, I don't want to go back. I want to stay in California. She was like, are you sure? I'm like, yeah, I want to stay in California. So I went over there, and when I went over there, it was good at first. Living with my mom, my first time ever. Like I was on 13, 14 years old, and we were living in Kalinga at first. It's like Fresno, like in the city of
Yeah,
Fresno.
yeah, yeah.
So we were living there at first, and everything was good. We were struggling, but I was like living with my mom. I was happy.
Yeah.
And then love is like the most addictive thing besides hate, that's in my opinion. So with that being said, love overtook my mom, and she brought my little brother's dad, which the person she ran away from, she brought him to California.
Oh.
And that's when the ship sinked, and we were climbing this big mountain, and we were getting to the top where we were just settling, good. Then she brought him, and it just went all downhill again. He started using drugs, started abusing my mom again mentally and emotionally, and now she had no place to run. She had no place to go,
Right.
because she's in. That's where she ran to. So me witnessing that, I had this like inner hatred for this man.
Yeah.
That
Fuck yeah.
try to say that loved us, but I obviously didn't. And then my baby brother was born. And when my baby brother was born out in California, I became his dad. I became my little brother's dad and my baby brother's dad, because I was the only one that was like mentally there for them.
Yeah.
Because my mom ended up starting using drugs again, because he started using drugs again.
Damn.
And now it was just like this whole, sick and like twisted like roller coaster of where we were doing good and then we were doing bad, and we were doing good, we were doing bad. And then we ended up becoming homeless, me, my mom, and my two little brothers. And I remember the day, because I had to go to court that day, and my mom was like forget this. We were literally evicted that day, and we're in the car. My mom was like, let's just leave. Let's just go with the clothes on our back. Let's just go to the shelter. Let's leave him and leave. I'm just like, whatever, let's do it. So we leave, boom. And we go to a shelter in Visalia, and we're chilling in the shelter in Visalia. And at this time, I'm gangbanging already. I'm with the homies. Like I'm not really deep in my hood, but I'm like in my hood.
How old were you?
I was like at that time I was like around 16.
Okay.
And so we leave and go to Danuba, and we chill there at that shelter. We get kicked out of that shelter, and then we go to Visalia, and then we get kicked out of that shelter. And at this time, like, we're like on the run. Like, I'm on the run, like from a case, like that I didn't even do. So I'm on the run for this case that I didn't even do. And at the time, like, I wasn't aware of like the circumstances that like we were in, like for me, now that I look back at it, I was a kid, but I could have been better, at being an adult at that situation.
Bro, no, you couldn't have. You were a kid.
So you mentioned that you had started participating in gang culture and stuff like that. How did that enter your life, and kind of what role did that play in your life?
Well, like I said, I was on a run for a case I didn't do. So one day we're living in Kalinga, and my mom and my dad's brother, they're on this like drug binge, right? Where they just leave us for like 5 days with no money, no food, no nothing. So I would call my grandma and I'll be like, yo, like we need some money, blah, blah, blah. Send us money. And then sometime like my grandma was like, I can't do it,
Yeah.
So at this time my grandma couldn't do it. So I went and I was like selling drugs, doing, breaking in cars, whatever I could do to get my little brother's Pampers and food. And I was stealing from Dollar Tree. I was like, like really trying to like be there. But one day I go to my homie's house. I'm coming back to my house, and my brother calls me, and he's like, hey, bro, don't come home. And I'm like, I'm already home. Like, what are you talking about? So as soon as I turn the corner, the cop draws down on me. And he's like, get on the ground, woo, woo. And I'm like, what the hell? Like, at that day, I didn't do nothing, And he's like, yeah, we know what you did, blah, 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 blah. Long story short, I ended up getting busted for breaking into cars in my apartment complex. But I didn't do it like that day. That it just wasn't me at that moment. And I'm just like, yo, like, I mean, I know like the stuff that I've done were bad, but like I didn't do this, Like, how do you guys kind of charge me for this? Like, I seen it on TV, but like me personally happening to me was just baffling me. So I get arrested for something I didn't do. I go inside juvenile hall, and in my mind, like, I have to protect myself at all times, and I got to go, knock out the biggest guy there or whatever, So when I'm in juvenile hall, I end up getting to a lot of fights with my rival gang. At this time, it wasn't my rival gang. It was just, people who didn't like me for some reason. So I ended up getting into a bunch of fights with them. And I ended up like basically meeting my homies from my hood inside that juvenile hall.
Oh.
So yeah, I'm in juvenile hall for something I didn't do. I meet my homies, and when I come home, I just start chilling with them every day.
Okay.
It's like an everyday thing, you know?
So basically, you were doing everything that you possibly could to try and get money to provide for your younger siblings while your mom was really struggling with her addiction.
Yeah.
And then you end up getting arrested, going to juvenile hall, and that's where your gang involvement would have started.
Yeah.
Okay.
Because before that, I was like 1 foot in, 1 foot out. I wasn't really like tied to nobody. I didn't want to like gang bang. I felt like if I did that, I'd break my mother's heart, break my grandma's heart. So I didn't want to do that. And I don't want to say I was forced to do it because you're never forced to do anything. But like I was just put in a predicament where I felt like I was really vulnerable at this, moment. And when I came home, it just like dug really, really deep. And then like once I got a taste of like the gang culture, I felt like, those are my real like family. They really love me and they care for me and, they put money in my pockets and they do this and that. But really it was just grooming me to be one of their, part of their gang,
Yeah.
which all gangs do. And, I don't respect that, but at the end of the day, it is what it is,
No, but we always say, though, people make sense. Like me listening to what you just shared about your early childhood makes all the fucking sense in the world. You're looking for stability. You're looking for community. You're looking for a way to provide for yourself and two other people that you love dearly.
All three of you are children. You're
all
a child
three of you are
and
children.
Your siblings are children.
Like at the end of the day, you have the wisdom of a man now looking back to be like, I could have handled that better. But the reality is that you were, how old are you now?
I'm 30.
Okay. So this was, let's say 14 years ago. 14 years ago, like your frontal lobe and your brain was not what it is today. And the wisdom that you have from your life experience now leads you to a place where if you were in that position today, you'd be able to handle it in a way different, way different way. But that makes so much sense. How old were you when you had your first encounter with police, and kind of what was the relationship growing up with like law enforcement kind of for you?
Man, that first encounter, I had a little bit of encounters, but it was the time when they locked me up for something I didn't do.
Yeah.
And after that, I was like, fuck the cops, like you guys are locking me up for something I didn't do, and it was just like, I have to be out there for my little brothers. Now, like, shout out to my older brother, but he's just not mentally capable to take care of anybody but himself, And I understand that and I get that, but it's just like, once they locked me up, I was like, you guys are not locking me up. You guys are taking me away from two children that need me, know, even though I'm a child. Yeah, it was just like, I was just like, you know what, forget the cops. And that like kind of fed into the fire of like gangbanging and the streets, like I'm doing anything to break the law. Like I don't even care now, If I'm gonna get locked up for something I didn't do, I might as well do the damn thing, like straight up. That's how I thought. But it was just, it wasn't, at that time, it was like around when I was like 16, got in trouble with law enforcement. And after that, it was just not really in and out, but like, it was kind of bad. It was pretty bad.
So what was kind of the lead up to the incident that ended up getting you incarcerated for a longer period of time?
So that time in life, let's see, man, I was battling on my own addiction. We were living in Fresno, and it was just a bad area, bad neighborhood. Still like really connected with my homies, and my homie lived like right across the street from me, damn near. So it was like an everyday thing, going over, chilling with him. And then I started getting high. And then once I started getting high, like my responsibilities went out the window, like my little brother, my two little brothers. I was working for a little bit, but started getting high, just left them. And I told my mom, like, look, I can't keep on coming home and then like my enemies are coming here bringing heat to the house. Like I got dudes coming here looking for me when my baby brother's outside. I got dudes coming here looking for me, like hitting up my little brother, trying to see where I'm at, trying to backdoor me. So I can't do that no more, And I told my mom, like, I gotta go. And I didn't leave for like, my own sake. I left for their sake. Yeah. And that too I regret, because then again, she went and took my brother's dad back. Like I just felt like if I would have stayed and did better, then, but at the end of the day, I know now that it's just the addiction she had to him, So I ended up really, really getting deep into drugs, and I ended up carrying around guns, and I ended up really like not caring about life or anybody else's life.
How old were you when your addiction started?
Like around 17.
Okay.
Like around 17, 18. I was smoking weed and stuff and like, doing like popping pills or whatever, but like I had an addictive personality, but I was more addicted to my little brothers and making sure they're all right. And then once I got into like really deep into drugs, like that all went out the window.
I can tell like this is really fucking emotional, and
It's really fucking emotional for me
no,
too.
I mean, we're definitely going to ask a lot of questions about your healing process and about your self-reflection process throughout your life up until this point and stuff. I want to keep moving through like your experience, and then I think we can talk more about like how you've been able to process a lot of the things that have been really painful for you to process. So first of all, thank you for sharing that. I know that's really probably brutal as fuck to voice that out loud. So
Yeah, it is. It is, and I feel like people see me in a light that I am now. And I don't like going back to that space because I feel like I hurt a lot of people. But I'm making amends, and if talking about it, like it heals me sometimes. And but also like brings back a lot of like dark memories, but I do have to start talking about it more and like getting more open about it because this is like I said, this is the first time I ever been on a podcast, talked about my story, and I feel like this will be healing for me, and this will be like I'll start moving forward in my life. Because back then I just didn't like, even when I was in prison, I just didn't care about nobody's feelings. I just cared about mine. And then when I started like doing work on myself, I started realizing that my feelings and what I believe and how I feel shouldn't be reflecting on everybody else. So I'm starting to really like dive deep into like what it takes to heal and what it takes to like
Yeah.
really, really like not even get over things, but like heal from the trauma that you live through and forgive. And for me, it's like having the balls to ask for forgiveness.
Absolutely.
I can feel you sitting here and you have a ton of empathy, and also not only empathy, but also wisdom and understanding of the situation that you were in, situations that you shouldn't have been in. You know what I mean? And that shit builds on itself, like you start at 7 years old doing this, and then it leads to 10 years old and 12 years old. And then you find yourself at 17 years old and you're in like big leagues. You know what I mean? Like but it started way back here.
Yeah.
And so I can tell from you that you have an understanding of what maybe led you to that place, but nothing will ever bring you through the point of like, you're a caring person for other people and you don't want to sit here and hurt people today. But I will say that that's something that I've really leaned on, is that shame can't exist in the light. And I encourage you to in the places that you feel safe, continue to use your voice and express yourself, because I think that it really helps me, at least, I guess I can say.
Okay. So more experience. I'm going to make you relive. But first of all, what was your sentence? How long was your sentence?
My sentence was 8 years, 8 months, and then I caught about like 4 years in prison.
Okay. Got it. And during that time in prison, how many facilities were you at?
Man, I was started in Wasco reception center, went to Wasco A yard, went to Wasco Hole, went back to Wasco, went to Wasco Hole, went to Tehachapi Shoe, and then High Desert. And then in High Desert, I went to Pelican Bay for about like 7 years. And from Pelican Bay, I went to, I was like, and then from Pelican Bay, I went to SATF. And from SATF, I went to Lancaster, and Lancaster I paroled.
Got it. So what was kind of the lifestyle that you were leading when you first got to prison? And then how did that shift?
Man, when I was in prison, man, I felt like, I was invincible. I was a young kid, fresh, like, 18 in there. I had a lot of like, hate still and like really, really angry. Still addicted to drugs. And then now I just started picking up a needle and started using drugs.
Wow.
So it was just like my life turned, for the worse in prison. I got stabbed in prison. I got stabbed probably like 22 times on just one occasion. And
What
it was
the
over
fuck?
drugs. Yeah, it was over drugs, over like being, having fights. And I actually seen it coming. Actually, like, I'm really good at like, judging the room and like being, making sure that I'm
You've
safe.
had to be.
Yeah, exactly.
So I seen it all happen in front of my eyes, and it was like a movie. Like it was like a straight movie. I seen it all transpire before me. And then the day I was gonna go to yard, in the morning, they kind of told me like, "Hey, the yard's gonna go down when we go out there to yard. The yard's gonna go down." They told me specifically, me and my cellie. And I'm like,
Who's
all right.
they?
Like my homies.
Okay,
like,
yeah.
the group of people I ran with in prison. And I'm like, all right, bet. And I turn to my celly, and my celly's just pale, like, yo, what are you gonna do? And then my dumb thinking is like, well, I'm gonna take my medicine, I'm gonna take what I got coming. And so I go to the yard, and sure enough, like the yard goes down, which means like there's an alarm. So there's like 3 false alarms. So like my stomach is just like just doing backflips. So I'm just waiting and waiting and waiting. And then we had like a full 4-on-4 basketball game with tally. So there's like 12 people on the basketball court. And then I look up, everybody's gone. And it's just me on the basketball court. So now I'm just by myself just playing basketball. I'm just shooting around, looking, making sure, like they don't come behind me. They come in front, and I'm just like looking, and then I see them. I see 2 people walk up, and you could just tell by like their vibe, like they're gonna do something. So I see one person whip out a knife, boom, and I see the other person take out a knife. So I'm like, all right, it's gonna go down. So we run to each other. They actually tell me like, "Oh, you ready? Like, are you?" And the stupid mentality in prison is like I respect someone that tells me like I'm gonna like try to kill you, which is like the most dumbest shit I've ever heard in my life. Like I should have just ran, but like I just couldn't do it. So we ran towards each other, and it was like a clash of like just violence. And we're like I'm swinging, I'm defending myself. And I ended up like getting like this close to having my eye poked out, and I didn't know what was up. I didn't know what was down. Like my equilibrium just messed up, and that's when it just hopped on me, and I got hit like about like 21, 22 times, like all like superficial puncture wounds. But at the time, I didn't know. Nobody knew. I just seen like a bunch of it was like a bloody mess. And so they come, they get me, they put me in a helicopter. And that was probably like the most fear that I ever been in prison, was like shackled up. You're in a gurney, you got this neck brace on, you're in a helicopter and you can't move. And the helicopter's like going sideways. So I'm like falling out of the gurney and I can't like say anything. And the cop is just like, are you all right? I'm like, no, I'm not all right. This is like,
you're shackled
yeah,
the
I'm
whole time.
shackled.
That's
Yep.
fucking crazy.
Yeah, shackled the whole time in a helicopter. Thought I was gonna die at that point. At that point, I'm like, damn, what if my lungs are punctured? What if my kidneys? What am I this? What am I that? My liver or whatever. So I ended up going to the hospital. Ended up doing a X-ray on my stomach and on my body, and nothing's punctured. Like God, like straight saved me on that day. Like He had my back, because the time when they hit me right here and I fell, they really started like giving it to me. Like they really started like just really stabbing me. And I don't know if you ever like poked a fork with like a potato, like not like a raw potato, and then like it's kind of hard to like, and then you hear that noise. Like that's all I heard. Like it was just boom, 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 and it was like all on my back, all on my side. And yeah, so I go to the hospital and I'm good. And the cops are like, well, what are you gonna do? Like, are you gonna like, go SNY? Like, they want the scoop because they're the ones in the hospital with me. And I'm like, nah, like, I'm not gonna go SNY. Like, I'm gonna keep it GP. They're like, what the fuck? Like, they just try to kill you right now, I'm like, I don't care. I'm gonna keep it GP, which is general population. And I did. And I went to the hole. Everybody, I'm talking about every single race, was like, bro, you're gonna get hit again. Like they're gonna try to kill you again. And at this time I had like 5 years left, after 6 years left. And they were like, I don't understand why you're still doing this, And like me personally, I feel like I gave up on so much things in my life. I gave up on my little brothers. I gave up on this. I gave up on that. That's my mentality. I was just like, I'm not gonna give up on this, which is probably the most stupidest thing not to give up on. And I just told myself I'm not gonna give up. So I ended up going to Pelican Bay. When I was in Pelican Bay, that was probably like the most stressful time of my life too, because I don't know if I'm gonna get stabbed again. Like I'm on this yard where like, it's like one of the most worst yards in, America. They try to portray it. So I'm there and I explain myself and they give me a pass. They let me like chill. And I do the same thing again. I start being a knucklehead again. I start like fighting people, doing dumb stuff. So they want to stab me again. And this time, God saved me again. And I guess like one of the guys that was supposed to do it, he ends up like locking it up, like going SNY, and they drop a kite, and I get snatched up off the yard, and I'm in the hole for like 2 years. Fighting to go back to the yard, and then they send me to a program in Pelican Bay, which it's called RCGP, which is Restricted Controlled General Population, which means that everybody there has issues on the yard. So they're in this one block. They all have issues on the yard. So they all can't go to GP, but they all don't want to go SNY. So it was like, at that time, it was 2 years of a revolving door of me going on missions, me putting my freedom in jeopardy to like go back to GP. And I ended up committing some violent acts in order to get good graces with my homies, which was all just like, and now I look back at it, it was just like the most like foolish thing I could have done, because I could have gotten more time, and I did get more time. I got 4 more years. And then I ended up doing like about like 5 years in the shoe, but it was like 2 years in the hole and like 3 years in the shoe. So it was like about almost like 5 years in ad seg for like, you know, the violence that I was committing in that program. And I still was like not really ready to change yet, you know? And while I was in the shoe, I ended up meeting a guy named Scott Budnick, which is the founder of the Anti-Recidivism Coalition. And that day like changed my life forever. And when I got out the shoe, I would call him, and like, cause none of my family at this time, like, they were just done. Like, they were like, yo, we're done. Like, my grandma wouldn't answer me. I didn't talk to my mom for 11 years in prison. She never, not one time, wrote me. I couldn't call her, nothing. My brothers, nothing. The only person that really had my back was my grandma, my tío, Charlie Brown, and my titi Missy. But they had lives, you know, they had lives. So I'll call Scott. Scott had life too, but he would always pick up, and he would always tell me, like, he could hear it in my voice. He's like, bro, you high right now? And I'm like, yeah, bro, I'm high right now. Because my drug of choice was heroin in prison, you know? That's like my addiction too. And he would never judge me. Like, he would never sit there and be like, well, you're fucking up. Why are you doing that? Woo. Never point the finger. He'll always tell me, like, why are you getting high? And none of my homies ever told me that. Like, none of my homies asked me why I was committing these violent, stupid acts. None of my homies sat me down and told me, like, let's find out the core reason of why you're doing this, you know? And we did. Like, we sat down and we talked, and he would always tell me, like, bro, you're different, bro. Like, I was writing poetry. I was, like, doing these things that nobody, like, really understood what I was doing. Like, I was writing poetry, I was writing screenplays, I was a writer. So he was like, bro, you're just different, bro. Like, you think different, you act different. Like, start, like, you know, realizing that. And slowly but surely I did. I started realizing that I'm not meant to be in prison. I'm not meant to be locked down. Like, people could learn a lot from me. I come home, people will love me. People will care for me. But, like, in there, I didn't see it, you know, because my own family didn't even love me and care for me. So I was like, ain't nobody gonna mess with me when I come home. You know, my own mom didn't even hit me up for 11 years.
So one person's belief in you was enough for you to start to recognize that you had potential and that there were things that you could accomplish in life. It took one person believing in you.
Yeah, it took Scott. And then he told me too, he made me feel safe. Like, when you come home, you got a spot to stay. Like, I'll take you from Fresno. Because if I go back to Fresno, I already know what time it is. Like, I already know what I'm gonna do. You know, I can't, for the gang that I ran with in Fresno, it's really, really hectic for us because we're really, really outnumbered. So it's like, you're either gonna get, you know, something gonna happen to you, or you're gonna do something to somebody. And it's like, you can't run from that, you know? So it just didn't make sense to go back to Fresno. So I was just like, well, like, I've always, like, heard this and that. They're going to do this for me, that for me. And it never came through.
Yeah.
He always came through. He would come pull me out from when it was COVID, when nobody, like, came out to the yard. He'll pull us out, chill with us. And just that, like, determination and, like, respect he had for me, I didn't even have that for myself. So that really made me think, like, man, I got to, like, I'm not going to do this for Scott or nobody. I do it for myself. Because if he sees that in me, then why don't I see that for myself, you know? So yeah.
That's powerful as fuck. Like, the what she just said or what you just said, it takes one person just being like, hey, I see something different in you for you to completely change your life. And the amount of lives that you have the ability to change with sharing your story and, like,
and with doing what Scott did for you and potentially
100%.
having the opportunity to show up for somebody else or multiple other people in the way that you're capable of with the gifts that you have. Like, I think that's something that we try to get at in all of our conversations is, like, it doesn't take as much as people think for somebody to feel like they're worthy.
Man, we just want to feel loved.
Yeah.
As human beings, we want to feel loved and seen. And for so many people, it's so hard to see yourself clearly. Like, that's the goal, is to take the inspiration and the love that Scott was seeing you in that moment. You know what I mean? He was seeing you, and he was saying, like, regardless of what you're trying to show me or the world or your homies or whatever it is, I see exactly who you are. Yeah. You know what I mean? And, like, That is so incredible. Like the amount of 17-year-olds you could look at now as a 30-year-old man and pour that same love into, and know that like the power that we all have to see each other fully and to invest in each other, like what that can do for.
He also gave you the gift of finally witnessing for yourself that like love is consistent and it shows up and it's reliable.
Yeah.
And you can trust it. Like there are people that you can trust in this world that you can believe are going to show up. This is real, you know? And like when we offer this to each other, it creates bonds that are so deep and so honest that make you want to better yourself because you see, oh, it's possible for someone to be here for me through the mud, you know, consistently. Yeah. And like, wow, okay, now I'm gonna pull my shit together and I'm gonna show up for myself consistently. And real love is the greatest gift. Like real love, not toxicity, not ownership, not empty promises and all of that, but the reliable, consistent, patient, respectful.
And I would tell him, I'm like, yo, bro, like, I'm 2 days sober, bro. And he'd be like, all right, good. Then I call him the next day, like, damn, bro, I'm like 1 day sober. He's like, well, it's 1 day at a time. Like, you know, like nobody, he was never like, what are you doing? Like, because I had nothing to offer him, you know, like, what are you loving me for, you know? And I was just like, damn, he's loving me for me. I don't got nothing to offer this man. Like, he has everything, you know, he's going to dinner with T.I. and all this stuff. Like, I'm dead ass serious. I would call him, he'll be at dinner with T.I. He'll still talk to me like, yo, I'm with Tip right now. Ooh. I'm like, what? And like, I knew that at some point in time, like me letting him down has to stop, you know, because he would never say it, but I know I'm letting him down because he sees a potential in me. So I know I'm letting him down because I keep on like messing up. So I'm like, you know what? I have to like stop letting, and then with me stop doing that, I stopped letting myself down because I started like climbing this, you know, like mountain of like self-love and self-worthiness. And I started running groups. I ran poetry class in the shoe. I ran this, I ran that. And, you know, he ended up like rolling out the red carpet for me like in another prison. I ended up messing that up and he still loved me. He still cared for me. And then when I got shipped to another prison, he was at my door, the first person knocking on my door like, hey, wake up. You be good? You all right? All right. Like,
so when were you able to meet your sobriety from your heroin addiction?
Man, it was probably like, I had like a year left and I ended up taking a substance called Suboxone. And it's like a synthetic, like, you know, heroin type of vibe. But like after like the first 2 weeks you take it, you don't get high no more. It kind of curbs the craving. So I ended up taking that. I ended up like getting really high and I loved it. And then I started taking it and I stopped getting high. So I'm like, damn. But I stopped wanting to get high. Well, that wasn't enough though, because I still got high. And then I started like realizing that I'm actually going home. Like, because the whole time I was in prison, I thought I was never going home. Like I didn't have a life sentence, but I still thought I was never going home. And then one day my cellie, like I'm sitting down and like I'm fixing up and my cellie's like, hey, when you go to a level, you know, 2, whatever, like, are you gonna go to board? Like, how's the board? I'm like, bro, I don't got bored. He's like, what? I thought you had life. I'm like, damn. Like my own cellie thinks I have life. That's how I'm acting.
Oh,
so I was just like, damn, acting like I got life. There's people out there who love me that are not courageous enough to pick up my phone call. That's what it comes down to. They don't have, you know, what it takes to be like, I'm sorry I wasn't there for you for these many years, but I'm here for you now. And I understood that. I got it. And I'm not mad at that. For a long time, I was mad at my mom. I was super big mad at my mom. But I ended up realizing that, damn, I don't have life. I got 2 brothers out there that need me. My mom wants to see me make it. My grandma wants to see me make it. Like, I broke her heart when I went to prison. And, like, I really, 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 really do not want to be here for all, like, life, you know? And I ended up getting another cellie that just made me even realize even more that I want to be here because he was so, like, deep into this that, like, he knew he was never going home. And I'm like, yeah, that's not going to be me. So I just stopped getting high. Stopped everything. I stopped, you know, started taking Suboxone serious. Started taking my sobriety serious. I started writing more. I started like really, really taking it serious. And Scott seen it, and Scott was like, yeah, you're sober, bro. Like, you know, like he'll tell me like, you're sober when you start telling the truth, when you start owning up to stuff, you know? So I started owning up to all my bullshit, all my stuff that I've been, avoiding and saying, giving excuses for, started owning up to it. I started healing, and I am getting sober. And I've been sober from heroin, since. I haven't used heroin since a year before I came home.
I'm proud of you.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Let's
Thank
fucking
you.
go.
Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you very much.
That's a beast that a lot of people are never able to overcome. So that's honestly beautiful. I'm so happy for you.
Thank you so much. I appreciate that.
You're welcome. So what do you think have been some of the most emotionally challenging things to work through on a personal level? Like, what are the things that you go back to that you need healing and that you work through? Maybe you work through it with your art and your creativity. Maybe you write a lot about these things. Like, what are kind of those things that you circle back to?
Man, I think right now, like currently I'm struggling with because I have an anger problem. I still have an anger issue. And I still get very angry very quickly. And it sucks because at the end of the day, like I look back at it, I'm like, damn, I could have did that better. I could have took that advice better or that, And so that I'm still definitely still working on, and just realizing that, my mom had her own thing going on. Like it wasn't me, It wasn't even when I was in prison, I'm like, damn, she's still not hitting me up. Like it has to be me, But my mom had her own thing going on, my mom was addicted to love, addicted to drugs, addicted to pain, addicted to failure. And she just didn't know how to be a mom, And I was just such a mama's boy. I just really, really wanted to be my mom. So yeah, just realizing that my mom's issues were my mom's issues, and and that had nothing to do with me. And then now being less angry and being the best man that I can be for myself, but also for my wife. Because if I'm not 100% okay, then that's okay, not being okay is okay, but it's not okay to force that onto somebody else. Just because you're not okay doesn't mean your wife or your husband has to be not okay, And then me voicing that to my wife has to be in a different way, It has to be in a way where we both feel safe, we both feel safe emotionally, and we both feel safe, to talk about things. So that for sure, communication, and I'm getting better at it, and I'm working through it, like you said, through my art and through, but it just has to be done through practice, sitting there and talking to each other. So I feel like that is making me more of a man, and it's making me more of a go-to for strength and guidance, and guiding her and guiding our situation, and making sure that we're straight and we're good. Cause it's hard out here. It's hard to live in LA.
It's
expensive.
so hard.
It's so expensive out here. But we're doing we're making it, I don't know if I want to jump ahead, but we have our own production company. And it's gonna be one of the biggest production companies in the world.
Okay,
let's fucking
voice
go.
it.
Forever 23 Productions. Watch out.
Voice it. No, I think that emotional regulation and communication go so hand in hand. You being able to digest what you're feeling in a moment where your emotions are really heightened, and not just let that heightened emotion explode out of you, but rather figuring out, okay, how do I work through this emotion, and even maybe be able to voice it to my loved ones of, hey, I'm feeling really big things right now. It's not good. And maybe I need to take time, a little bit of time to calm down, or maybe I need to just be able to vent right now, whatever it is. And you finding your way with your loved ones to be able to safely work through your emotions and express them. That's hard for anybody. And it's also such a key aspect to just being a healthy individual. And clearly that's what you're working on. I want to talk about you finally coming home. I mean, first of all, walking out of those doors must be the craziest experience ever. But also, how has it been to acclimate back out here?
Walking out those doors was crazy. Leaving prison was it was crazy, because when I was in the holding cell, I was doing push-ups and washing my hands a million times, and I was just yo, I can't believe, because I swear to God, I thought I was gonna stay in there forever. I thought I was never gonna get out. I thought I was gonna just stay in there, and that was it. I was gonna die in there or something, or OD or something in there. But yeah, I ended up coming home, and I was just a feeling of just a big weight lifted off my shoulders, I'm home now, I spent a long time away, and I felt like everybody forgot about me, and I felt like nobody cared about me. And I didn't know what was gonna happen. I didn't know what I was gonna do, But I knew like literally when the first like month I've been home, I grabbed my phone. I had Google Maps, and that's all I needed. I just went everywhere. I went to Universal Studios. I went to this place. I went everywhere by myself. I went to every single Ross in LA by myself, and I just did
Ross?
that. Yeah, Ross.
That's so random.
Yeah,
Why?
I would go to Ross just to look at the shoes. Because I remember when I was a little kid, I would go to Ross with my mom, and we couldn't get nothing. Or I'd go to Didi's.
We had that too. We would go to Ross
I'll
too.
get like one thing. And then now, like, I'm out. I get myself stuff, you know? So I copped a bunch of kicks, and I just went crazy. And, like, you know?
I love that.
Yeah.
I'm so happy for you.
Well, we'll get past prison. Who are you now? What lights you up?
What inspires you?
Yeah, what inspires you?
And how do you live your life? Like, tell us who you are.
Man, like, now, you know, I am Kid with the Camera, the co-founder of Forever 23 Productions. And I live my life through a lens that's capturing the humanity that people don't see or people like fail to see in themselves. And then once you play it back for them, once you edit for them, once you do, and I just like I live my life through a creative, you know, like I love being creative. Shout out my boy Arthur James, like he's like one of my biggest like creative partners besides my wife that like really taught me a lot about, you know, movie industry and being creative, being a director. I love creating. I love like now, like I work for ARC. I work for the, you know, obviously I'm the storytelling and content associate, soon to be storytelling and content senior associate. And I also work for 2 other nonprofits. I work as their, basically their content creators. And I also work for a really big clothing brand called G'd Up. Shout out G'd Up. I got them on right now.
Let's
go.
Yeah,
and I work for them. I do their events. And,
not a man, a machine, this guy.
yeah, I'm steady working, I'm steady moving, I'm steady grinding. And it's like, what comes first is, you know, God, you know, my wife, and then work. But at the end of the day, like, I'm just creating and I keep on creating, and I'm gonna make short films, and I'm gonna make movies, and I'm gonna write scripts. And I'm gonna be like, you know, I'm an Oscar-winning director, and I know it. But I'm just, you know, I have to put it out there. And like people used to laugh at me all the time when I had my phone, and I'm like, yo, I'm a photographer, I'm a videographer. And now they see me, they're like, all right, this dude's like so when I say like, you know, I'm an Oscar-winning director, people might laugh at me, but believe me, I'm gonna be on stage. Me and my wife, we're gonna be on stage for sure.
You know, we did an episode once where we were talking about how you have to be the tiniest bit delusional to be able to achieve anything.
For sure. Yeah, you gotta be delusional.
And I've heard so many people talk about that who have reached such high heights in their careers and been able to achieve so much. And they talk about, I don't allow people to tell me what's possible for me.
Yeah.
And I want to, before we let you finally go back to living your life, is there anything that you wish you would have known when you were a kid that you know now?
Yeah, I think what you just said, like you have to be a little bit delusional, you know, you have to like have this over belief in yourself because nobody else is going to have it in you. I mean, your parents are supposed to, but realistically, like you live the way I lived, everybody's gonna tell you how you're not gonna be this person, how you're not gonna do this, and how you're not gonna do that. So I wish when I was younger, I would look in the mirror and I would tell myself, you're gonna be an Oscar-winning director. No, you're gonna be an Oscar-winning director. And I love you. Like I wish I knew those like little things I do in the morning that I try to do in the morning that makes it possible, you know? And I also wish I knew that like my mom had her own things going on, that it wasn't me, you know? That I wasn't a bad kid. I wasn't a troubled kid. I wish I would have known that though, for sure.
I think it's nearly impossible to know the goodness in yourself when it's not being reflected in very many places and when you're not getting that feedback and positivity and belief given to you. You know, I'm not going to say that nobody's ever made it without support, but I definitely think it's far, far, far less likely for you to not face some serious obstacles throughout your life if you've had little to no support or stability, safety, stuff like that as a kid. So honestly, thank you so much for sharing everything with us.
I appreciate you guys a lot.
I'm so glad we finally got to hang out. Wifey, thank you for freaking being here. And hopefully we'll get to run it back and have another conversation sometime.
No, for sure. And this, like I said to everybody, this is the first podcast I've done. And now people are like ringing, like people are wanting me on everything.
Okay, let's fucking go. I'm so grateful we're the first.
You're
first.
Yeah, I wanted to make sure you guys were the first because I've talked to you guys for a minute about doing this.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I'm definitely
You've been
excited.
so kind and supportive. Thank you for
Honestly,
your
so
kindness.
generous.
For
I got
sure.
you guys. Thank you guys.
Thank
We
you.
got you.
Yeah,
I can't wait to see you
much.
climb.
For sure.